Financial stress, money worries, money. Oh, cost of living. Do you remember when shopping wasn't £50 a bag? That was good times, wasn't it? So constantly given this news, this idea of cost of living crisis, we're in a crisis after crisis after crisis. It's almost like that is designed to attract your attention by putting your system in a state of fear all the time. Because what happens when you're in a state of fear? Well, you become very suggestible. It's very easy to tell people what to do when they're in a state of fear, because the unconscious is just looking for an instruction. But having said all of that, I mean, cost of living is definitely going up, and the stress and the strain that it is putting on the system, there's so much that's tied into money, and money could be its own very, very long genre. The ways that we perceive money, our emotional attachments, what we project onto money, safety, security, survival. That's the thing that we all use as a measure and a benchmark. It's supposed to be just a measurement. I want to be able to store value that I've created now in a way that it can maintain itself across time, and then I can extract it in the future and use it there. We put so much onto it. We project all of our fantasies onto money. We think in some way that the value in money is inherent, but it's not. Like, we put the value into it and then it measures that. In theory, like, that's the idea. Imperfect system for sure, but it seems to be the best we've come up with. But it's like we'll put that value in money as if that is the thing that is going to deliver us. Once I have this, then I'll be okay. And it's really beneath all of that is this fear of access to resources, like resource scarcity, feeling of lack. And a lot of that is actually an inside job. So if you look at the way that the nervous system operates, a feeling of lack is going to be equated to a feeling of helplessness. I can't. That will be like your classic shutdown response. I don't have the resources within me to be able to do this. What I've found with my journey with money is that as I've come out of that sense of helplessness, that kind of shutdown response, as that stress begins to leave the body, then suddenly you feel like you have more energy to be able to navigate these situations with a little bit more clarity and a little bit more energy, finding solutions from a place that is a bit more relaxed and open, so you can actually see what life is asking you to do, or what life's presenting with you, and then how you receive that, and then what you make from that situation. And your ability to do that is greatly enhanced when you have less survival stress kind of clogging up your system. And so the other thing that's interesting about all of this is that you look at the self-justifying narratives. We talk a lot about how the nervous system generates thoughts. Like, this particular energetic dynamic is generating storylines. I'm shut down. What does that mean in terms of words? Well, I'm helpless. I can't do anything. We practice that enough, we start to take that on as an embodiment. It starts to become our shape and how we shape our bodies. And then as we shape our bodies in that way, that kind of self-generates and perpetuates the same kind of storylines and derivatives of that storyline. And so to interrupt that cycle, to create a rupture in that loop by actually going towards it and addressing it, is really, really important, because a lot of the times our narrative about what's happening is going to guide what we notice in the world. Very, very quick and easy and basic experiment you can do with this. Shut your eyes for a moment. When you open your eyes, I want you to look around the room for anything that's red. Okay, so open your eyes, look around the room for anything that's red, all of the red things. Close your eyes. What did you notice that was blue? This experiment demonstrates that you find what you're looking for, and oftentimes our beliefs about a situation are self-propagating, self-justifying. We have that bias towards wanting to confirm what we already believed, so we can gravitate towards that kind of stability, mitigate the anxiety that comes with the complexity of uncertainty, and just stabilize around an idea, even if that idea is miserable. And our unconscious has all of these old ideas and conclusions that it's drawn from its past experience of reality. There was a great experiment Derren Brown did on a guy, where this guy was convinced that he was unlucky, and Derren Brown went to great lengths to try to give him things and put things in his lap. Like, he would leave a £50 note on the street in front of where the guy was walking, and the guy would just miss it. I think he even went as far as having a billboard drive by this guy saying his name, "You have won X amount of money," or whatever it was. The guy just blanked it. Like it didn't enter his field of vision because he wasn't looking for it. He was convinced already that his story was true. The way that he filtered the world through that story was all trying to support that same thing. It's important to start to look at these stories and start to pull out these narratives and think about, this is not like a blame or a shame thing, but what are these unconscious narratives that are guiding my experience right now? It's just what's been programmed. And if we can start to take a little bit more control over that and a bit more agency with looking at these underlying unconscious narratives, then we can start to shift the experience that we're having with them. And we go from the head top down, looking at the thoughts, but then we also come from the body up, looking at the feelings and the embodiments and the things like that. The place that you create from is important. So, I mean, you can see this where people will feel shame and then they will do things that will perpetuate that shame. They will act out of shame and create more shame. And the same from joy. If something is created from joy, it has a resonance to it that people can feel. If you're creating from a space of these resources are outside of me and I need to pull them in, rather than I'm generating this from the inside out, and the world is reflective of where I am. Examples within the Wizard of Oz, it's like I'm chasing that thing is outside of me, and Dorothy's running towards the cottage and it's getting further and further away, and it's like that's what it can feel like sometimes, like cost of living crisis. My system is in disarray. I'm reaching and reaching further, but the more I reach for it, the further away it gets from me. And that's really annoying thing about reality. Oftentimes what it takes is for us to settle into what we would call a negative experience and allow it to become positive in itself, and let that give us access to the kinds of internal resources that we might need to be able to navigate our way through something in a way that could actually be useful. So we're going to have a little bit of a look and a tap and a breathe around all of that today. Cost of living crisis energy and how to get some of this stuff moving around the body. Hand on belly, hand on chest. Notice where you are. Notice where you are today. What's going on in your body? What are you bringing to this session in terms of body experience? Take a breath. So what I find is sometimes useful when I'm tapping is to breathe. Breathing is useful, believe it or not. The data is in and breathing is useful. And what I find useful is to just increase the strength of the breath by 10 to 20% maybe, and having this sigh and putting it on repeat can be really useful while you're tapping. So you say the words and then you take a breath, and you say the words and you take a breath, because oftentimes if we're very tight in our mind, we're very much in the forebrain. Just increasing the strength of the breath a little bit can start to loosen the tension. It just gives you a space to think in a slightly more non-linear way. Different brain waves enter the scene that can help open up ideas that might not have been previously obvious. It just gives your unconscious a little bit of space to throw up things that it needs to throw up, and we really want to track what the unconscious is giving us rather than trying to think our way through a problem and a situation just using our forebrains. So we're going to start with this breathing where you inhale through the mouth. Let it go through those slightly pursed lips, just like you're taking a sigh. You can start to do that on repeat. And we're going to start tapping around the chest. So continue breathing as you're tapping, and then say the words in between the breaths. I want you to drop into your body these words: cost of living crisis. Notice what that brings up in your body. Notice the intensity of what you feel when you drop those words in. Is there a kind of a reaction, something like a tension or a contraction, something like that? And breathe with that. So stay with that feeling, breathe with it at the same time. Go under the arms. Cost of living crisis. If the yawns come, let them come. All this cost of living crisis energy. All this fear. All this survival stress. It's a cost of living crisis. I feel the pinch. It feels really scary. This feels like it could be dangerous. What if I run out of money? What if I can't afford to eat? What if I can't survive? What if I run out of money? What if I can't feed myself? What if I can't feed my family? What if things just keep getting more expensive forever? The prices just keep going up. And I feel like I need to work harder. Just to keep up with them. Feels really debilitating. Feels so out of my control. I have no idea what to do about this. And my system is in a state of panic. I can feel that fight-flight anxiety. And that fight-flight anger. While at the same time feeling completely helpless. This feels horrible. I don't want to feel all these feelings. And then a part of me gets even more worried. Because I think if I'm thinking and feeling this way, I'm not even going to be able to notice where the opportunities are. Because my system is so shut down and stressed. So I try to suppress all this panic. I try to suppress all this shutdown. And I try to power through. Because working harder must be the answer. And then I get even more stressed. Because I have even less energy. And I'm completely burnt out. And I feel so helpless. I have no idea what to do about any of this. And it feels so debilitating. And parts of me might even feel like they want to cry. And like they want to give up. And like they want to curl up under a blanket. And just avoid the whole world. These feelings are so hard. feelings are so difficult. There's too much to do already. I need a break. I need to slow things down. But I can't. Because there's too much to do. And I need to survive. And all of these stories and all of these narratives sound a lot like survival stress. Thoughts like, I need to, all that fight-flight urgency. Thoughts like, I can't, all that shutdown energy. The truth actually is that there are external things happening in the world. But how I filter those and how I receive them is up to me. Because what's also true is that my nervous system is just having an experience. And while that experience might feel scary, and while that experience might feel intense, my body was built for these experiences. My body can handle this kind of stress. My body can handle adrenaline. It can handle anxiety. It can handle anger. And it can handle being shut down. These are all processes designed by the body for the body to help the body. And since I am that body, they're all designed to help me too. Or maybe they feel uncomfortable. So maybe I try to avoid that stress. I try to suppress it. And maybe I try to keep calm and carry on. That creates quite a big disconnection from the reality of the present moment. From the reality of my experience. So I wonder if I could start to soften a little bit. And let some of this experience in. Because maybe I'm tougher than I think I am. And maybe I can breathe with this stress. Maybe I can handle it. And maybe if I let myself breathe with this stress, and I let myself embody it, and I let myself move with it, maybe it doesn't have to last that long. And then I can gently start to educate it. Receive its messages without trying to fight it for dominance, without trying to fight it for control, which is just stress fighting stress within the same system. Maybe I could start to see that all these parts of myself all want the best for me and have my well-being in mind. They want to try to protect me from what they perceive as a threat. And I'm glad I have a body that can do that. I'm glad I have a body that can mobilize to action. When it needs to do that. But I wish these parts weren't fighting themselves. So maybe if I just give them a little space, give them a little breath, and let them feel their way through my system. And acknowledge and pay attention to them. And offer them thanks and appreciation for trying to do their best to support me. Maybe they'll be a little bit more receptive to listening to how they could actually better support me. So I want to thank these parts. Thank them for showing up. Even though sometimes I have my issues with them. And even though sometimes they feel really uncomfortable. And even though sometimes I get really scared. And really frustrated when they show up. That's just another part of me. Trying to protect me from what it perceives as a threat. And I can choose my response here. And so I'm going to choose to not add any more tension. I'm going to choose to relax the muscles of my face. I'm going to choose to breathe. I'm going to choose to accept reality as it is right now. And that reality is my body's just having an experience. It's not going to last forever. I don't need to fight that experience. I don't need to fight reality. So whenever I fight reality, I almost always end up losing. But only 100% of the time. Instead of fighting reality, I want to fight to let go. I want to flow with it. and move with my experience. And let myself settle, so I can be with my body and show up for it and find out what it needs. And that might not be immediately obvious. And I definitely might get that wrong. I'm going to choose to be okay with all that too. And as my system starts to relax, and I start to let go of some of this survival stress, I can gently start to reach the ground. And notice that I'm still breathing. And notice that any problem, no matter how insurmountable it seems, can be broken down into step by step, moment by moment, and breath by breath. But I have to turn and face reality. That's what's really important. And the reality right now is just a bit of survival stress. And as I turn to face that, happening within my own body, I can start to let it go. I can start to be willing to relax a little more into the present moment and start to pay attention. And start to get curious. And start to navigate my way through, step by step, to transform with this situation, because that's my power. I'm not a static creature. I'm constantly in flux, constantly in flow. And as the situation changes, I can adapt and transform with it. And recognizing that, there could be hope for me yet. So I'm willing to give it a chance. And I'm willing to be at peace. Hand on the belly, hand on the chest. Notice what you feel now. Notice if that energy has moved and shifted around. You can go back through these scripts and you can ad-lib and pause and adapt and go off piste, and just you're trying to verbalize all of these unconscious, ambiguous thoughts. You're bringing them out. You're giving them the clarity of airtime without latching onto them and being taken for a ride by them. You're just letting them come out and express themselves and feeling what it feels like. Is it like a tense, high stress, survival stress type thought, or is it something else? And if it is a survival stress thought, you give it airtime, you connect with it, you let it express itself. Maybe it's trying to tell you something important, but you've got to let it kind of give it its space and its platform. And it could be that it's just so tense with survival stress and that we haven't processed yet, or we haven't kind of dealt with it or looked at or faced, that these thoughts are very, very uptight. And then once you start to come down from that place is when you start to open up that peripheral perspective of, okay, that survival stress is needed and necessary, but I don't want to stay there for too long because it's going to get me into this all kinds of chronic troubles. I want to have a regulated system that's able to move up and then move down gently back into, okay, I'm here on the ground. How do I tackle this issue? There is a way forward. There is a way through. I know that I have resources within me that I can transform with this situation and adapt with it, but I need to be able to access them by releasing all of that survival stress from my body. So hopefully that was helpful. Do feel free to go back through that as many times wherever you still feel that emotional charge, and just practice in training this thought path through and this building this awareness of what's going on in the body in real terms, rather than just being hypnotized by the mindscape that we tend to spend most of our time in. So let me know, comments, feedback, anything like that you want to share, and I will see you in the next video.